Happy Thursday and welcome to today's special episode of Veeam Tech Bites. We're back with the core crew, the Ricketron and KMS1. How you doing today, Kirsten?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here to talk about malware detection. We haven't visited this topic in quite a few months, and so I'm happy to, be here talking about it, talking about some of the features that Veeam has. And also, it's always great to, be presenting with you again, Rick.
Oh, blushy, blushy. Thank you, Kirsten. Likewise, I really enjoy rolling with you, friends. But Kirsten she's kind of cheeky with that because she knows that throughout the show, I'll just say, Kirsten, what do you think about something? And she doesn't know it's coming. I'm pretty random like that. But we have a little trick that we're going to do on this week's episode. So, as many of you know, Kirsten and I both are based in Central Ohio. We got Jeffrey in the Barncade, also in Central Ohio. Felicia, our producer. Where's she tuning in from? She's tuning in from Texas. I've got a Veeam coin from one of our events in 2019, and I want to do a little flip. But before I do the flip, I want to let everybody know. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Like I said, we're in Ohio. We got 3 in Ohio. We got also Felicia in Texas. But we love just hearing from everybody and seeing where y'all are tuning in from. But Kirsten, I brought this out for a reason. You might remember this training, but one of the funny things I like to do is we're going to do a demo on this Tech Bytes, and it's all about who gets to demo. So you can pick Veeam logo, actually the old logo, 2017 to 2022 RIP logo. Or Kirsten, do you pick the Texas? What do you pick on the coin?
I'm gonna choose the Veeam logo, Rick.
You're gonna choose the RIP Veeam logo. Well, it is Texas. That means I win, and I will do the demo because I love my Zoom in. So, but anyways, now I just like to have some fun with that. Just thought y'all would do that. So you're right, Kirsten. Malware detection, and we're going to revisit it. This is something we haven't spoken about a lot. And let's also kind of jump into the why and what are we talking about here. So walk us through a couple of these data points.
Yeah, so let's start off with, why we're talking about this. And there's a lot of key statistics here showing us that, it's important that not only do we have a backup, but we also have a backup that's cyber integrated, right? So with 69% of organizations have told us that, they have been impacted at least by one ransomware attack that resulted in encryption and or data exfiltration, which is something that we want to keep in mind, right? 89% of organizations had their backup repositories targeted. So when we think about, cyber attacks, not only are they encrypting our data, they're actually taking our data out of the data center, exfiltrating it, and now they're also targeting our backup repositories. So, what are some things we can do to keep in mind to make sure that we're protecting that data? The next statistic here says 52% of organizations reported they need for major improvements when it comes to their IT operations teams and security teams. And I feel like this number too, this 52%, this isn't something, I'm not really shocked by this number because I feel as if I've been hearing about how IT operations and security teams have been struggling to, be aligned, especially when we think about, security and protecting our data, right? It seems like a lot of times in the organizations today, these two teams aren't always on the same page, or maybe they haven't, sat down in the boardroom lately and kind of discussed their strategy when it comes to a cyber attack and how we're going to recover. And then also here we have 11,000 is the average number of alerts that the Security Operations Center receives per day. 11,000 alerts. Like, imagine if you got 11,000 text messages a day. I can barely stand a group chat in my text. Like, I have that on mute. Imagine getting 11,000 alerts plus being a part of a group chat. Like, oh my gosh. So, when we think about these numbers here, this is really kind of setting the stage of why we need to, start implementing stronger security controls, why we need to start thinking about combining our, maybe our data protection strategy with our security strategy to really achieve that resilience. And Rick, like, when you look at this slide, what are some things that stick out to you?
Well, I want to go to that 11K as well. That's an incredible, that's a heaping load of data, and where's the noise? Where's the actionable intel and all of that, right? So that's a different discussion, but a lot of the different tools that people use to manage their security posture, right? It's about bubbling up the things that matter.
Yeah, like
But
what is the most critical alerts? Like how do we filter through the noise and actually get to
yeah,
the most critical alerts?
and the how is actually pretty simple. I'd recommend the best way to start is to get the people and the processes and the technology aligned because in my opinion, Kirsten, it cannot be a us versus them referring to IT ops and security. It's a us is us, if that makes any
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, I was almost thinking that there was like a saying about like us, like, but I can't actually think about the saying now, obviously. But yeah, I think it's really important for people, process, and technology to be aligned. When we think about even, trying to achieve one goal as a team, we need to make sure all of our people on the team are aligned. And then we also need to make sure that we have a process in place. There is nothing more confusing when you have to go and maybe recover from a cyber attack or recover even a machine and you don't even know the process to recover. Or maybe you deleted an email and you're like, I really need that email back, but who do I contact to get that email back? What is the process? So making sure that we know the process when it comes to these things is really important, as well as like having a good technology solution in place and making those right investments in technology. So really these three aspects are really important to achieving resilience, right?
Indeed. And this is not something you can just throw money at the problem. And you have to actually know and have a process of what to do. And I'll give you one example. Kirsten and I and Jeffrey, we're based here in Central Ohio. We have one of our tech support hubs here. And I love talking to them, especially around ransomware scenarios. And like for the last several years, one of the biggest things that they see not going well with customers is not having a plan, not knowing who's in charge, not knowing who in the organization can declare this a disaster and stuff like that, which is like they're ready to recover, but they don't know what to do. And that's just losing valuable time. So having the people, the process, and the tech aligned, that is the way. All right, so that sets the stage for the problem that we're going to talk about here, Kirsten. But I lost my bet with the coin flip, so I'm going to have to do a demo here in a bit. But let's talk about some capabilities when it in the vein of detection and more. And believe it or not, a lot of it starts before the even, an incident even happens, before the backup even happens. Is there any one of these four you want to cover real quick, and then I'll cover a couple more?
Yeah, I was actually just talking about some of these capabilities today on a call that I had. And when you think about, the security and compliance analyzer, that is really going to double check and make sure you're following the best practices and guidelines for your backup server. It's configured properly and you're actually following security best practices. But not only that, all that data is also integrated across the Veeam data platform. So maybe you want to get all that the results in a report so you can actually sit down and go check off one by one. You can run a report that gives you all of that information right at your fingertips so you can start implementing some of these strategies and see these recommendations that you can put in your data center. And then also observability and AI insights, right? Um, just being able to observe how your data center normally interacts, how many resources it consumes, like that continuous monitoring approach is really going to help identify when something is suspicious or something is happening that shouldn't be happening. So you immediately know, hey, this is abnormal. We need to take a deeper look into um, that what's happening here. And then also the Coveware Recon Scanner, I think is really interesting, but I think that I've already talked about two of these, so maybe you can touch on the Recon Scanner a little bit, Rick.
Yeah, I only asked you to do one. You did two. Very nice of you. So, Coveware Recon is a really strategic part of our portfolio now. And basically, it'll baseline what's normal before a backup. Now, it can also be used before an incident or after an incident as well. So we'll get to this as we build this out, but it's really important to know what normal is, and it can feed this incredible data pipeline. And then also the Veeam Incident API is a really important vehicle because It will allow organizations to correlate actions from their EDR, SIM, and SOAR tool to Veeam. And that leads us to during backup, right? When we think about detection revisited, the demo that I lost the bet I'm going to do is it's actually right in here. It's the ransomware detection, AI powered inline malware detection, indicator of compromise detection. So that's if we see the framework happening for these threat behaviors. And we'll also take a look at some of the activity on the file system. But above all, we have to have one more thing on there, Kirsten. What's the one on the top right, and why is this important?
Oh, the mutable backups, because, as I said earlier, these threat actors are targeting our repositories so that we can't restore, and then we have to be forced to pay them. And that's the last thing we want to do is pay these bad actors. So having an immutable backup is really going to help safeguard that data. And what's great about, having a mutable backup is you can actually make sure that you're, maintaining that immutability period and you're maintaining that compliance within your organization with a document, the immutable backup report that can actually say, hey, these are how many restore points that are immutable. This is if your immutability period changed, you can get an alert on that. So really making sure that you're following these requirements that your business is setting out for you. So integrated across, once again, the whole platform, right, Rick?
Indeed. And that leads us kind of to the third part when we're thinking about detection and overall data resiliency, post backup and then recovery. So if there is an incident, the best way out of that is a recovery of a backup. It's on an immutable target, and we also want to use something like Threat Hunter, Yara to ensure that it's clean and not reintroduce the threat. There's also capabilities from Veeam that look for signature-based malware scanning. In fact, I'll show you a quick look on that to do that right after the backup. How cool is that? As well as orchestrated restore and clean rooms through our orchestrator product. So this end-to-end process for the data resiliency that really powers a lot of our malware detection, that is just the start. What's really a difference maker here from Veeam is the Cover by Veeam experts. So in early 24, so March of 2024, Veeam acquired a company called Coveware, and they have incredible capabilities, negotiation. They have a data pipeline of threat intelligence. They have some additional tooling, like the Unit Decrypt tool and some of the other things, as well as just post-incident advice from experts who deal with this all the time. This is the Veeam difference right here. So this is the largest commercial database of cyber incident data as well. And this is in-house expertise at Veeam. We're not using a partnership. This is Veeam staff and a Veeam business unit. And then I mentioned earlier on the incident API, very much related to that, for some of the integrations we have across the ecosystem. And these are just 5 of the highlights. Most of them start with S, but that's just luck. S for security, I guess, right? But the thought here is between the incident API, some of the productized plugins to these apps, and there will be more. This end-to-end look is really, really powerful. And, Kirsten, a lot of us on our team, we get these questions about the data resiliency and the security capabilities. Malware detection is just part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot more resiliency capabilities that Veeam has offered, and has been working on making sure that you can get these within your platform of your choice, right? Like if you're using Splunk, being able to get those alerts through that application, or even CrowdStrike, right? Like making sure that you can forward those Veeam events into the CrowdStrike platform, so you're only getting the most critical events in real time. So this is also going to help make sure that you're not receiving all this noise and you're getting the most critical alerts delivered to you in real time, right?
Yeah, and reverse. If one of these platforms detects something, they can use the incident API to let Veeam know. We'll take an additional ad hoc backup. So this is a bidirectional set of capabilities. Truly the difference maker. And if we look at what's happened really in the last year from this area, a little bit more, Threat Hunter is really a big deal. It's an optimized signature-based scan to make sure these threats are clean of malware. I really like this one, and I'll do this one in the demo here. The indicators of compromise detection. Do you have a favorite one on this list, by the way, Kirsten? Here, my 2 favorites are. I guess these are my 3 favorites right here.
Yeah, I think that those three are like really cool features. I really like the spotlight on malware, being able to visually see, how where the malware is infecting my data, which repository, and that's really done through, Veeam Threat Center. And this is a great dashboard at a glance view to immediately know your overall health of your backup operations, right? You are immediately greeted with a security score, so you can say, oh, my security score is 25. I need to work on that because it's out of 100. And then you also get to see, like if that ransomware got into your backups, what part of what data center is the most infected? Do you have multiple data centers? Are you storing some backups in Seattle and some backups in Atlanta, but maybe only the infected backups are in Seattle? So you can see that more visually, and it really provides you with that at a glance view that's easy to comprehend.
Indeed, it's hard to pick a favorite. They all are Veeam superpowers as they were, and this is part of Veeam Data Platform. So I'm going to jump into the demo now. I think I got it right. Yep. So let's start first with some of these things. Now, I'll admit this is a lab. Okay, so I'm going to ask your forgiveness first of all, but the other part of it is I like to leave some of the errors there so that they are repeatable demos. Because when I start simulating malware, I seem to get mysterious calls from our security team all the time. They don't seem to like that because they are looking at the lab here. But let's take a look at the security and compliance analyzer. So I'm just going to go down to the bottom here. You'll see that it's taken a look here at some of the different environmental and best practice types of configurations. Okay, so it takes a look every time you run it. And again, this is a lab, a little bit more red than I would like, but the thought here is you know what to work on to boost your threat center score. So making changes here, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirsten, this is one of those data points that get fed into the score in Threat Hunter.
Yeah, and also if you take a look at the top, you can see, hey, you can apply security settings automatically by using this script with the knowledge base article. So I know every organization's different, right? And not everybody's going to be able to implement all of these recommendations due to your own organization's requirement. But if you want to get started implementing them, this could be a really great place to get that script. Maybe you need to tweak it a little bit, however you need, and get started implementing those, right?
Indeed, just bumping your score up. Good stuff. And then, like, for example, like this one, I probably should turn off Windows Script Host, right? That's an easy one that you can do the work, and then you can actually rescan this particular thing and you'll have a better score. So that's a really good place to start. And honestly, if you're looking for a good place to boost your overall resilience, start here, research each of these, check out the KB article, and give it a run. So let's talk also about the malware detection. Okay, so I did something with Emily on our team a couple weeks ago. I did a malware detection on demand. And so this has actually led me to the idea to talk about this because we did a simulation here. And let me show you what happened. So I ran this job. I'm just going to walk through the normal backup, and you can actually already see it right over here. It's going to my backup storage that's double play immutability. So that's on-premises unified storage. It's object with immutable attributes on those objects. And then it's offloaded to a cloud provider for immutable attributes. Two different copies that are immutable, really, really resilient. So that's where the backups go. And I have no issue putting these simulated malwares on those types of storages because I know when I do these recoveries, I can ensure it's clean, or even if it is infected, I can leave it there. I'm not worried about it. What am I backing up? I've got one simulation here, and you'll see I've got the little malware icon, that little red icon. That's indicating that there was a detection. And you'll see everything else is just a regular part of our job, where we store it, how we process it. I do want to highlight one thing that's very important here. The file system indexing, this is super important for a good important part of our detection, and I'm going to show you in a second. So you can turn it on as a global setting, but if this isn't turned on per job, then it might miss out. So I'll show you that here in a bit. But it's really transparent to the backups, other than please ensure you're doing this to get the full detection. So let me show you where we do that detection. So in the inventory section, so I did a little quick move here, but the inventory section is down here in the Veeam backup and replication console. So once you click inventory, you can get the full view here. And the malware detection, I just right click on that and go to settings. I'm going to walk you through all of this really quickly. So it's on or it's off. And if it's on for the encryption detection that detects the patterns on disk inline as the backup is taken, we can look for things like, um, a whole bunch of data becoming encrypted or deleted or things like that, or the presence of disk behaviors consistent with some of the threat actors, right? Now, I put it on extreme and I do get some false positives. I wouldn't say I get many, but I get some. And I'll show you in the list here. And then you can also look at the inline analysis, which is, this is that engine and it's set right here. Now, the second tab, file detection. This is super important. This is that one that's looking for the individual file behaviors, both of ransomware threat actors, but also from the indicators of compromise detection. Now, this one is super powerful. We had an organization recently let us know that this one thing that I have detected here in the blue box thwarted an exfiltration event. This is wild. And there was no ransomware. It was going to be an exfiltration. Veeam caught it, nothing else did. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, threat actors don't invade nowadays, they log in. And so this was an example of us capturing this. And this capability right here in the blue box, this came directly from our learnings from the Coveware team, right? So this is an example of a Veeam acquisition working into the product as well. So it's really, really cool. And you can click on attacks to monitor. And I'm going to pull this up here, and you'll start recognizing things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, TA001, initial access. We're looking for these types of behaviors, and there's hundreds of them in here. Exfiltration, I mentioned that we detected. So basically, the presence of these tools when they weren't there before, that's pretty cool. We're detecting it. So I think it's really awesome. And the most important part, I shouldn't say most, but an additional very important part is right here, update malware definitions automatically. So this little checkbox is hilarious because I have it memorized. It's KB 4514. And if you don't have your Veeam server connected to the internet, this little checklist, this little KB here has a XML file that you can download and you can place in the path it's talking about. And keep in mind, you don't want to modify it because it is digitally signed, but you can put this file where it needs to go if you don't have the internet access. Now, when I look at this file, any threat actor you want, it's in here. I challenge you to do a search and not find it in here. And what I mean by that is there's like over 4,000, and I'll just pick something here. There's one called Deadbolt, and then there's another one called Deal, and it's just loosely alphabetical. You go all the way down to the bottom, and you'll start seeing some of the mappings to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Okay, so some of those you see how we do it. So it's really powerful and thorough at the same time. But if you're not connected to the internet, I would highly recommend you periodically update with KB 4514. Now, let me show you this detection. So over the years, I've had this in the lab here for a while. Let me park it right here. A couple things going on. You'll see I've got some Windows physical systems that have a hit of just encrypted data. Now, I actually know for a fact that one was a false positive, but I left it there on purpose. And you can see it was like super consistent because I did something in unison to all 5 of those systems, right? So it all just kind of popped in. What I want to draw your attention to, let's make it green, is over here. You'll see that there were 2 hits, okay? So this one up here on the very top, the most recent one that I did last month for the Tech Field Day was just a known malware extension. But these other ones also have the antivirus scan. What that means is I confirmed that there is a hit with Threat Hunter. Okay, so what I want to do, if I have, for example, this hit on XFD13, I would go back over here and look at the object storage and find my on demand. So it has it marked as potentially with the red, right? So I should just right click on it and do a threat hunter scan, which is right click scan backup. And what I love about this, Kirsten, is you can scan it with threat hunter to find the last clean restore point. I didn't check the bottom box yet, but I got to think that's a pretty easy proposition to determine if this is clean.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. um, there. And it seems like even if you're unsure, say it gets flagged, this is a way that you can definitely double check and make sure, is this a false positive or is this an actual positive attack? Giving you one more layer of security, right?
Indeed. I'm going to scan the other one because I have a second copy of it just for reasons for demoing. And basically, the threat hunter scan is going to kick in and then confirm that it would or would not also have that additional hit. Now, the scan of the backup, I want to highlight because I've done this 3 times, as you can see here, and I start showing people. Sure, backup has been in the Veeam world for a long time. I want to highlight that there's a new type called backup verification and content scan. It's already set up here. Somebody asked me a question. His name was Jaw, I guess. And basically, I took my SQL Server databases, which was a job, and I'm randomly picking 2 machines to run, and all I'm doing is scanning with Threat Hunter, right? So the thought is you get an additional signature check after you do the backup, way less work than, say, a full-blown Sure backup, especially for database servers. Really, really powerful stuff. And, Kirsten, I think that is just speaking to the ease of use here on how easy it is to do these types of malware detections. And, I'm super happy that people have all these capabilities to look at.
Yeah, I really like how there's that almost like that shortcut version of the Sure Backup job, because before it might take even longer to run that Sure Backup job and get that analysis. Now it's a little bit more shorter of a time for you to get that data in regards to that scan, right? And that's really cool. And what's great too is if you get, I know across our platform we have, our monitoring and analytics Veeam 1. And one of the features within Veeam 1 is remediation actions, right? So if, say you get that possible malware detection alarm, you can actually have it automatically run that scan through Veeam 1. So you can say if this alarm happens, run a sure backup and scan. So like you'll get that alert if you don't have to do it manually, if you don't want to. So that's just another aspect of that too, that you can think about when
I didn't
implementing some
even
of
think
these
about
features.
that. That's wild. That's cool. In fact,
Mhm.
if I would have lost the coin toss, that's probably something you would have demoed along with Threat Hunter. But,
Yeah,
maybe next time. We'll see.
yeah, it's some pretty powerful stuff, and observability is a very important aspect of security, right? That monitoring portion of it. So you always want to keep that in mind, right?
Indeed. All right. Well, hey, Kirsten, thank you so much for joining me here on today's episode of Tech Bites. A lot of good comments and people letting us know where they're tuning in from. Appreciate that. But thank you, Kirsten.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
And a big thanks to Jeffrey live from the Barncade, as well as Felicia in the DFW. You won that one. Maybe be on the hot seat. Big thank you to our production crew. And next week up on Tech Bites, I don't even know. I'm on vacation next week, so we'll see. I know we've got an industry insights episodes, and we always have the community recap. So there's always something going on at veeam.com. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, and that concludes today's stream.